Hey, welcome back to Female Founder World. I'm Jasmine. I'm the host of the show, and today I'm chatting with Kristel de Groot, the co-founder of Your Super, which is a superfood wellness company that started back in 2014. So I know that there are heaps of these kind of companies out there now, but they were really pretty early, and they're now doing, I think they've hit 200 million in revenue. So that is a lot. And she actually exited the company last year. So she's got some lessons from getting started through to exiting and selling. She went to business school, but she's got some very specific thoughts about why you don't have to. So if you have a little imposter syndrome because you want to start a business, but you don't have like the credentials, this conversation is your permission to get started anyway. Okay, let's get into the show.
You are now entering Female Founder World with your host, Jasmine Garnsworthy.
Kristel, welcome to Female Founder World.
Thank you for having me. I'm super, super excited to be here.
For people who don't know what you're building, what is Your Super?
Your Super is an amazing, actually started as an e-com business, now really just a business that sells superfood mixes. We're in the business of helping, people improve their health with the power of plants.
And what's the accent? Where are you from?
I'm from Holland, and my co-founder, he's from Germany, so my accent is just mixed everything.
Okay, but you're based in Brooklyn. You're like, we were just talking about the fact that you're basically down the road from me. I walk past where you are, your street, literally
so
every
funny.
day.
Yeah, no, we've been this year kind of all over the place. So we're 2 months now here, and we just got a little one, and we're kind of nomadic this year. So every 1-2 months, we're going to be somewhere else and trying to figure out where to settle next.
I love that. We're also in the same place where I'm trying to figure out like what our home is going to be now that we have a baby. And my husband is fully remote. I'm obviously working in the business, but mostly remote apart from the events that we're doing, but I can kind of like fly in for that. And we're doing the same thing. Like we're pretty nomadic through the summer, through to kind of like the end of the year, just figuring out like where feels right.
Yeah, we have no idea either. And everyone is like, where are you going to settle? Where are you going to settle? You know how it goes with a baby, right? Because you have a baby, you have to settle. And we're just kind of like, I don't know. I'm just kind of flowing. So I have
totally.
no idea.
Yeah, my deadline is like, okay, well, when they have to go to school, we have to find somewhere. But until then, why? Can't you just take the baby? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, well, you can. I figured out what you will notice when you're going to travel with the little one is that instead of like 2 checked luggages, you're going to have like 6. So.
Yeah. Okay. I can imagine that. It's already like when I leave the house, it's like packing a whole caravan. Yeah. Okay. I'm fully we need to have a separate conversation about this because I need to find out your tips. But let's get back to the topic, which is business and what you're building. You have been working on Your Super since 2014, which is 9 years, the year I moved to New York. And I want to understand where you were at in your life and what the inspiration was behind the brand, because it's a very personal, very interesting story about how you got started.
Yeah, so I started a business with Michael. We actually met in college, and then he got sick, like 2-3 years in our relationship. He was 24, and he got cancer, and that was kind of like such a turning point in both our lives. I watched the movie Forks Over Knives while he was going for chemo, turned plant-based the next day, and after his chemo, right, where yes, you're cancer-free, but not healthy, right? So that's kind of where I stepped in as like this crazy health nut. And I was like, okay, we're going to put you on these detoxes. And I had this cabinet full of superfoods. And I was like, okay, I have this empty jar and I'm going to just scoop everything in there for you. And I gave it to him because he was like, what is this? This is expensive. Like, how does this work? And, he's just started taking these green superfoods every single day. And he just started to feel so much better. And we realized there's so many more Michaels in this world. And that's really where, the business started from, where superfoods are nothing new, right? It's been used for thousands of years from all over the world. If you look at Eastern medicine, if you look at Ayurveda, South America, they have all these amazing, powerful ingredients where, they use food as medicine. And we just, combine them together and make it easier for people. We have, 10 functional superfood mixes. They're super clean, nothing added to it, no stevia, nothing. Everything is organic, plant-based. And it's just a really easy way of adding more plants to your diet.
Awesome. And I just want to give people like some milestones so they can know where you're at. Like there are a lot of, superfood brands that are out there. You are definitely one of the ones that have made the most impact in the space. You've been around, I think you were like really early in this movement. I read that you had raised 34 million. You've got more than 200 million in revenue, and you were named the fastest growing food and beverage company in 2021 by Inc. magazine. What have I missed? What are the milestones along the way? Pretty impressive.
This is the funny thing. Like, we started also actually in Europe. And we first were in Amsterdam when we started. Pretty quickly moved to Berlin, and then, had our first office there. And then early 2018, we actually launched in the US. And I think also as a European business to like go to the US, we were still very small in Europe too. And everyone was like, why would you go to the US? This doesn't make any sense. And we're like, no, we're going to go. We were super naive, young, and we're just like, we're doing this. And it was actually one of the best decisions we ever made. So it's funny how that goes, but it's, it has been amazing to have this impact to reach all these people. And you just help people live a healthier life, because we all want to feel better, right? But we're all busy, and this is just a really easy product to just get more goodness in you.
When you were first starting out, what kind of things were you doing to kind of get your product out into the world and build that buzz early on?
So early on, we did farmers markets, which I think is a great way for anyone just starting, because it gets you in touch face to face with consumers, and you start to understand what kind of questions they're asking, which you should note and write down, because those are the things you should also write. If you sell, for example, e-com, those are the things that need to be on your PDP or on your homepage. Like, what are some of their, objections of not buying the product, right? You can actually start to understand those much better. What are they not understanding, and making sure you answer those kind of things, on a flow online as well. So I think that was super helpful. And from there, this was 2014, 2015. So we did a lot of barter deals on Instagram and just sending out a lot of free products. I think especially in early days, right, when you probably don't have a huge marketing budget, I think just giving away products to the right people is just a really easy way of starting out. And not everything is going to be impactful, right? But sometimes only 50% or even 20%, right? Can be impactful. So that was something we really focused on. And then we started to dabble. I remember one of our early investors was 500 startups. And we did a 1-month e-commerce course with them, where we actually learned the world of e-com and how to read all those numbers and everything. But also, like, how do you run Google ads? How do you run Facebook ads? And we started, instead of having agencies doing it, I actually learned it myself. And I was like, okay, this is how I run Facebook ads. I'm going to focus on these. And it still was a journey, I would say, of at least a year to like kind of like make it work, right? Because it's very interesting. People are like, oh, you just upload a picture, right? And you have copy and then you just run it. And it's like, no, it's true advertising, right? You really like your creative really, really matters. And, one of the biggest things for me that made a huge difference was, instead of trying to sell the products, right, and focusing on that in your ads, just so we have a tendency, right, as founders to wanting to talk about our product all the time, is to actually make that switch and talk about the story, right, of like, why do we actually do what we do versus like, what are you doing? And that made the biggest difference, because people don't buy products, right? People buy from people, right? And they buy, especially women, right? And women buy most consumer products. We buy with our feeling. Like, what is the emotions that you create, with your, the ads you're running? And don't just advertise a picture of your product, right? Like, really tell a story and your personal story. And just like, what are then the second layer would be like, what are the problems you're solving for, for her, and going through that.
I was doing a little bit of research and chatting with your publicist before we lined up this interview, and learned that the brand, like through this kind of Facebook paid strategy, you were able to scale from 1 million to 70 million in annual revenue in 3 years, which is pretty incredible. When you say that you should be talking about your story rather than just like what the product is and what the offering is, can you give an example about how you kind of did that through advertising? And you obviously have an incredible story behind the brand, how you kind of, because you do have a very limited, real estate when you're running an ad. So like how did you actually like execute on that?
Yeah. So I think it was a learning process, and writing, learning how to write copy, I think, is a skill. And I think writing copy, and this can sound maybe a little boo-hoo, but I think it has this spiritual side to it as well.
Yeah.
It's writing from the heart, right? Not from the head. And when it really, really practical, it's like, just keep it short, right? You don't have to tell everything. And someone helped me with that at some point too. Like for the first 3-4 years, we never talked about our story. Like we didn't even like talk about it. Michael had cancer or this, like that whole thing was not even part of our business. We're just like, we're doing what we're doing. And to us, it all makes sense why we did it, but we never talked about that. So like, I remember, we had someone on our team, and what she did is that she actually, and you obviously can do this exercise with yourself as well. She interviewed us to just tell us like all those things, throughout our lives. What is everything that kind of happened? And then from that is to actually pick, okay, what are the key moments, right, that are really important? And from there really, shape like the brand story. And, in a short way, right? Because there's this, if we could talk for 5 hours about the whole story. And if you then think about a Facebook ad, I really think it's like, if I think about like those videos, back in the days, like 3-4 years ago, you had this Now This videos. And I was really inspired by those, right? Where you had maybe 5 to 10 sentences, very short, and fill that in for yourself. And just like, what is it? So for us, it could just be like, Michael was diagnosed with cancer. Kristel helped him with this. And it's like very, almost feels like baby language, right? But someone like scrolling their Facebook feed cannot read a whole book in 2 seconds, right? So it's like just to really dumb it down, keep it short. And I think there also, you don't have to tell everything. You just need to grab someone's attention and make them interested enough to click, right? Like you have to think about, what is the goal of an ad? The goal of the ad is actually not to sell. The goal of the ad is to make someone interested, click, and then your website actually has to do the selling.
We keep hearing this like theme around being able to, as a founder, being able to tell your story and understand your why, like honestly, over and over again. So you're speaking to that as something that's really important from a paid strategy, but also folks who have done really well on TikTok say like that's what's working in the organic TikTok strategy. Yeah. And then people who have been accepted into like the Target or Sephora Accelerate programs say like that's why they got into those programs. Like it seems to be just like this super powerful thing that you as an independent founder can do, that just like the bigger corporations like a Mondelez can't do that. You know what I mean? Like they can't tell that personal story. So you need to like really like hone in on that skill.
I agree. And I think also, as if you think about the consumers out there, and same as if I see a brand and there is a personal story attached to it, like there's just like this true connection to the product, right? And I think we all get excited about it too, where it's like, oh, this sounds so fun. And like, okay, there's like right away this trust as well. Of like, okay, I feel like the good intentions, like they're trying to do the right thing. And yeah, you're just don't have that with a Mondelez or with the Pepsi or with, the Coca-Colas of the world.
Something I'm really interested in with your story is that you, in the beginning, decided not to get an agency or bring in a freelancer. Like you learned this yourself, and so you could kind of manage it yourself. And another founder that I spoke with, Barbara Rivera, she's got a beauty brand called Ceremonia. They just launched into Sephora, and she said that when she's thinking about how to prioritize her time and like where to focus in the business, she really thinks about what's new and what's next, and she wants to become like well versed and like get expertise in like the new thing so that she understands everything that's happening in the business. And I feel like what a lot of founders do is kind of the opposite. Like they're sticking to what they know and what they're good at, and then they're kind of like bringing in other experts. Do you think that it is something that was just like a necessity early on, that you don't have big budgets to have agencies, so you need to learn it yourself? Or do you think that that's a really important thing, that founders understand all of the facets of the business?
I mean, I think everyone's going to have their own way. So I don't know if there's necessarily a right or a wrong, right? It's just something that worked for me. I find it also a lot easier now, even if I would, at some point I had, we had a big marketing team. I had like 50 people under me or something, right? So I was managing people, running the accounts, and managing people, even, building out the strategies and stuff. But because I had done all those things over the years myself as well, I knew what I was talking about, right? So I felt a lot more confident as well to kind of just manage them and understanding, and the conversations we're having, and, like figuring out together what direction we would go. So it's something I really enjoyed, but I also think it depends, like, where are you at in your career, right? If you were in another company, you already manage people, you feel like, hey, I feel very comfortable with that. For me, I was 23 when I started the business. And for me, that was the path to really like go step by step. I did CX when we started. I packed packages when I started. I mixed mixes together when I started, right? Like I kind of did it everything over time. And it's something I also really enjoyed. I really truly enjoyed learning. And I think if you're someone who really enjoys learning, I think it's great. And I think the one other thing I really want to point out is also is like you don't have to do as a business everything, right? Because if you look at all marketing channels out there, right, there's so much you should, right, be doing. There's like 500 different things in marketing which you can be doing. And in the beginning, I think we were also trying to do everything. And then suddenly I realized it's like, oh, you actually don't have to do everything. They're just like maybe 2-3 things and do them really, really well. Mm-hmm. Whether it's like, hey, it's a podcast, or maybe it's paid, or maybe it's, you know, your organic TikTok, or like, you know, whatever, like, or maybe it's email marketing. Pick like your maybe max a handful and do those really well and just kind of let go of the rest, because sometimes it's just doing this couple of things so good and becoming really experts at them, as on even on a business level, right? As in your business, just doing those things so good is going to have the biggest impact instead of a little bit in everything.
I think there are a lot of people that need to hear that and just like get that permission to let go of the fact that you don't have to be doing everything, because it is overwhelming. Like there's SMS, there's events, there's brand, there's PR, there's like, you could do community, you could like, it's just too many things. You could be doing YouTube. Even for me, who's building like an editorial and a community-based business, there are a million channels that I could be publishing on, but I'm like, no, we're going to pick these few and that's what we're going to do.
You just keep going. You can keep going. And it's the same in paid, right? If you go in paid advertising, you can go Facebook, then you can go YouTube, then you can go Pinterest, then you can go Google, then you can go on all like TV, right? Like Hulu and everything else. And the list just, and you can go programmatic. The list just keeps going on and on. Oh, let's do some podcast advertising. Let's do this and it's this. And at some point you're just like, I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. I know that early on you were able to get some investors on board. First of all, why did you decide to go the venture route? I think a lot of people in consumer are like more leaning into the bootstrapping now, kind of just because of necessity. Like there's not that much money around. Yeah. But you decided to go the venture back route and were able to get some really great investors. How did that all come about? And what lessons have you learned? You know, you've raised $34 million. Like that is a lot of money, and you're a female founder. What lessons do you have for other people who are out there wanting to do this?
Yeah, I think the reason we did it, I remember really, Michael, we were kind of sitting down of like, hey, what do we want to do? And we said, hey, let's go big or go home, basically. And we really felt like by getting the money in that we could scale faster, reach more people, therefore could have a bigger impact. So that was kind of the thinking, you know, behind it. And I think there's, you know, a beauty of it. I think like everything, just if you scale faster, right, you learn your lessons sometimes a little bit faster as well. In the beginning, right, I mean, we have the business already for 9 years. So most of the money we've raised from like, you know, end 2017 on, a little bit before that as well. But we also were bootstrapping the first 2-3 years and trying to kind of figure it out. So it was also not like an instant. And I think that's also for someone, you know, like if you're bootstrapping in the beginning, I think it's great. And I think especially nowadays, like, you know, build out your metrics, build out your business case, and do as much as you can before raising any money. And if you don't have to raise money and you have a profitable business, awesome, right? Like don't raise money, great. Or raise money then with your profitable business and therefore can make a jump, right? And be profitable then right away again. So I think what we've learned, really get to know your investors, I think is really, really important. I think it's been interesting. I'm a female founder, but I also had a male co-founder, a white male co-founder, right? So I had like, it's an advantage. And it's just so true, right? When you look at the statistics, I think even now, like this year, even lower percentage of money goes to females. It's crazy. I think it's like 5% or less. And that includes female founders with a male co-founder, which is like, just blows my mind. And it's just having those conversations. And I think it's important to know you're going to get a lot of no's. Right? Like from, let's say you talk to hundreds and hundreds of investors, right? Like from every 100 you talk to, you're going to get like 99.9% is going to be a no. But from every conversation you learn something again. You might get another intro again, right? And people are like, where do you find them? It's just like, you just go out there and one conversations after the other. And And there also it's storytelling. Like, why do you do what you do, right? It's like, it's not just about the product. It's really also there. Lead with your story. Why do you do what you do? Because that's really what also they're also looking for.
You've also, you've obviously like really learned what you're doing as you've been building this business. You know, like you built something really incredible. You're speaking with such confidence about fundraising and the process because you've done it. But I also know that you did go to business school, and I'm curious about how much you put down to what you learned at business school versus actually like getting out there and doing it.
I think business school is totally not necessary. I think uni is great to socialize, and I think it's great to have a good time. And I was a great student. I had good grades, all of that, but I really don't think it's that important. Like, I started a business and I still had no idea, even though I studied business. And I always like joked about this. It's like, I had no idea what to do. I didn't know how to register a business. I didn't know this. I had to Google everything.
Why is it so like not practical what you learn?
Exactly. And then you have a big business and there, all these models and everything. I'm just like, let's just practical stuff would have been so handy. And then if you think about the world now is so different than even 10 years ago, like social media and how you market, it's like so outdated, everything I learned anyways. I think the one advantage I might have is that, like, yes, if I'm in a board meeting and everyone talks about all the financial numbers, I did study finance and accounting, right? So like, I understand what the numbers.
But that's like, that's like one course you can do through Coursera online. Like,
you don't need 5 years.
Yeah.
Exactly. To my point, you don't need business school. But if I learned one thing, that's the one thing I learned.
I read that you sold the business last year to the healing company. Is that right?
Yeah, we did.
Congratulations. Talk me through what that was like.
Quite a journey. And it's, we're still involved in the business. I'm still working there. And it's fun working with them together. I think the most important piece for us has really been the missions aligned, because actually everything we do is about our mission. We're on a mission to improve people's health with the power of plants. That holds true for your super, but that's also Michael and me, our personal mission. That's why we actually wrote a cookbook, which is coming out, which is exciting.
Amazing.
Your super life and cookbook plus lifestyle, your super way of eating, everything is in there. And I think that's also what we continue doing. And we still feel your super is the business where we're doing that in. We're also, with the book and just like kind of figuring out like what's next as well. I had a baby last year. So I feel like everything is transitioning, and a lot of things happening.
Amazing. I would love to know what advice you would give to somebody who wants to build a business that they can exit one day and they're in the early days. Like, what foundational things should they be thinking about? Yeah. What, if you could go back and talk to yourself in 2014, like what would you be telling that younger version of yourself?
I think the biggest thing is to just enjoy every moment. Because I think what you really realize is, right, we often don't even build to exit. I actually don't think it makes any sense. And I think it's really just about building something you're truly passionate about, building something you really just get so much joy about, because what's the point of building something and stressing about it for 10 years and then selling it? It just doesn't make any sense.
Totally.
Right? So I think it's just this really enjoying the ride, because it truly is about the ride. And if you happen to sell one day, yes or no, like it doesn't matter. Maybe you have an amazing business and you can, that fits to your lifestyle and it's just something that's with you for a long time. Or maybe you own it and someone else is operating the day-to-day at some point, right? There's so many different ways how, it can switch at some point. But you don't need to know step million if you're still at step one. And I think that's also, if you're thinking about starting something, don't think about all those steps ahead. Just truly be in the now and just think about the next 5 things that need to happen. And you don't need to know everything. If I was so naive and I didn't know so many things, and I think it was fantastic, because if I would have known what I know now, I'm like, would I have even started in the first place? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just like to really embrace the uncertainty, I think as a founder is really, really important. And to kind of just love that and just, especially females, we can go with the flow. That's our superpower. Like, trust your intuition and just like go with it.
I was talking with Michelle Cordero Grant. She started a business called Lively, and they sold, I think, for like $105 million to like Wacol after 3 years or something just wild. And she's building her second business now, which is an energy drink company called Gorgie, which is awesome. And I asked her this question. I'm like, what are you doing differently in your first business that you didn't do in your second business that you didn't do in your first one? And she had a really similar answer to what you just said about the advice you would have given yourself. And she was like, I'm just enjoying the ride this time. I feel like I was so, like stressed and really like hustling and worried about the end destination that I didn't get to like enjoy the journey. But now I'm really focused on just the joy and enjoying the process. And I just think that is really important. And it can sound, for someone who's starting out, and like, oh, that's really easy to say when you've got a really, you've got the successful business, like you've done it and you're like, oh, enjoy the ride. But it is. And I'm someone who has had a business that failed and a business that worked. And I just think that like in both cases, the failure or the winning is a really small moment in it. Like the journey is what it's all about.
It's all about the journey. And it's like some lessons you also just have to learn yourself. Right. Like, I think like I've heard people say it too. And I was like, I don't think it ever truly, really clicked. But then it really is about the journey. And if it doesn't feel that way yet, you're going to learn it one day.
And I also feel like since having a baby, like this is totally, I'm really digressing here, but like that is also taught me, it's like about, you've got to enjoy the everyday because there's no like destination. Like you're not arriving. Our babies
amazing that way too. They wake up and they're happy. Right?
Yeah.
They're just happy. They're in the moment. They're great. I'm like, oh my God, like he figured life out.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, don't you know all the stuff we need to do today? No, they don't care.
Doesn't care.
Yeah.
No.
Kristel, the last question that I ask everyone who comes onto the show is for a recommendation. So it's a resource. It could be a lesson you've learned, a book that you've read, something that you think other people who want to go where you've been should check out.
Great. So I didn't know before what I was going to say. I was like, let's see what comes up in a moment. And actually two things come up. The one thing that has been really important to me and still is just a morning routine. And the book I read was Morning Miracles, read that like 8 years ago or something, and really, kind of installed it in my life. And it's so standard, but if you don't have a morning routine, create it. Doesn't matter what it is, but just like have your own rituals. And I think for anyone who's listening in who's a mom, it's still possible to have a morning routine.
I was about to ask you that.
But you have to be a little bit more flexible. Yeah. Right. So it might not be always as perfect as it used to be. And maybe you do one piece of your morning routine right away in the morning, another piece maybe later. So I think one of the things when you're a mom, it's just all about like just being flexible in your own mind. You cannot be as rigid. And within my morning routine, it's something I truly enjoy is affirmations. I listen to affirmations from Louise Hay, and she also has an amazing book, How to Heal Your Life. And I think there is such power in affirmations for your own mindset. But also when it comes to your business, like what thoughts do you think and what do you say really, comes back to us. And I think the more you start to focus on it and more you start paying attention to it, the more you realize this is actually true, because you're like, really, is this really true? Is this really true? And then you actually do it and you're like, this changes everything. I remember just one really quick example. I did this when we were living in Berlin and I wanted to move to LA, but I was like, this is not possible because we have a business in Berlin. And for 3 months straight, every morning, I read out loud my affirmations. I'm moving to LA next summer. I'm moving to LA next summer. And I had no idea how. I literally couldn't see it. I felt so silly even saying it. And it was not the next summer, but it was the fall. We moved in November, actually. We moved to LA because the business, this and this, and somehow things worked out and we were moving to LA, right? So it's just funny how just like saying things over and over again and keep putting the intention there, just trusting the process, things just happen to, work out.
I am super woo and really like believe in all of that. But I think that for people who maybe aren't, like, you just need to think of it as a way to keep you like really focused on like a very specific goal, because it's constantly top of mind. If you're doing affirmations, I actually set them as my computer password. So every time I turn my computer on in the morning, it's like, that is the password, and I change it as life evolves and that affirmation needs to change as well. But it just keeps it like front of mind every morning when I turn on my computer. It's the first thing I think of.
So smart. I always want to say my password now, but I'm like, can't do it.
Yeah, no. Don't do that. Don't do that. There are a lot of people listening. Kristel, it has been so great chatting with you. Congratulations on the exit last year. That's massive. Where will they be able to find your book, and where can they shop your business?
Yeah, the Your Super Life book is basically everywhere where you buy a book, from Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Target, Amazon, wherever you want to get it. And then Your Super is on yoursuper.com, and on Instagram it's at Your Superfoods. And you can also find me and Michael at Kristel and Michael on Instagram as well, if you want to just see more of like the baby pictures and stuff. So.
I mean, I'll be there. I'm fully there for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Quick shout out to all of our Business Bestie subscribers. If you are loving this show and you are building a consumer, CPG or e-commerce business, or you're about to build one, this membership will give you access to the people, experiences, and the tools that you really need to build your dream business. Head to femalefounderworld.com/subscriber for more.